It was almost 12 years after the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. People all over the nation who supported his nonviolent protest and the civil rights movement missed the peaceful freedom marches, although some of the participants were brutalized by law enforcement officers and citizens who objected to the nonviolent surge for civil rights advocated by Dr. King. The cause that once resembled a green, strong, leafy shade tree of hope and dreams of freedom and equality had been reduced to a dry log of despair. Only a remnant of the quest for freedom that engulfed the freedom marches of the 1960s. Then it happened. In 1975, the Black Heritage Society of Houston, Texas, launched a bold initiative. They endeavored to rename one of Houston's major thoroughfares, the South Park Boulevard, as Martin Luther King MLK Jr. Boulevard. This initiative was widely supported nationwide because it strengthened efforts at the congressional level to enact legislation that recognized a Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Reverend Wilbert Leo Daniels and his brother, Reverend C.D. Daniels of Greater Jerusalem Baptist Church, provided overwhelming support for the Black Heritage Society's street renaming project. The Daniel brothers knew Dr. King's father, Reverend Martin Luther Daddy King Sr., and were well aware of his desire to amend the egregious act by the Houston power structure against his son. Not only was Dr. King Jr. slighted by the Houston power structure on his previous visit to Houston, but the leading Black ministerial groups, political leaders, media outlets, and numerous business leaders were also encouraged to ignore Dr. King's presence as part of the "you are not welcome" treatment. The infamous "you are not welcome" treatment occurred in early October 1967. Only a small group of less than 400 supporters showed up to march with Dr. King Jr. He left Houston saddened by the small reception. However, he vowed, "I shall return." And he did just that. On October 25, 1967, Dr. King returned to Houston with a star-studded support group that included Harry Belafonte, Aretha Franklin, Joan Baez, and many others to rally the Houstonians to action by speaking to them about the city's systemic racism. His plan to expose racism in Houston was sabotaged by adversaries who set off a stink bomb in the air ducts of the Coliseum where the speech was to be delivered. Spectators fled, and the building was evacuated, including Dr. King and his entourage. Dr. King did not get another chance to address Houstonians because he was assassinated the next year on April 4th in Memphis, Tennessee. Like most fathers who love their children, Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. never forgot how badly his son was treated in Houston. So when the Daniel brothers invited him to join them and the Black Heritage Society in an attempt to encourage the city of Houston to make his son's life and legendary works an annual event, he was thrilled to accept the invitation. His enthusiasm and gratitude mingled with the determination of the Martin Luther King Jr. street naming project spearheaded by the Daniel brothers and the Black Heritage Society, propelled the communities to action, and South Park Boulevard was renamed Martin Luther King MLK Jr. Boulevard. The esprit de corps, dedication, and commitment from this group of Houstonians who dared to rename a street to immortalize the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. created a spark of community spirit that ignited the annual Martin Luther King parades. Actually, it was the first major parade and street change ceremony in America. This historic event occurred on January 21st, 1978. We are fortunate to have one of the key players in that historic event of 1978. He is none other than Ovide Duncantell, Executive Director of the Black Heritage Society. Mr. Duncantell will narrate some of the historical facts for us.
That day was a memorable day because of the inclement weather. It was somewhere between 9 and 19 degrees above zero. I can remember that much. However, we had 20 bands were scheduled to be in that event for that parade. The weather would not cooperate. All the bands were canceled. We only had 3 bands to show, and they walked to the parade because they were area bands. That was Jones High School, and that was Worthing and Sterling. We made a parade out of that, but fortunately we had 600 cars that lined up for this parade. And matter of fact, they were all the way down at the end of Martin Luther King Boulevard, and cars were still coming, getting in line. I would say this, that this was a tremendous day. We had Dr. King's father could not be out in an open convertible as normally you see parades, grand marshals, but Dr. King's father was our grand marshal for this parade, and he was in a camper. We had to have him enclosed because of his age and his health, but it was a marvelous day. Over 2,500 people, according to Channel 2's analysis, was in attendance at this parade. We were ecstatic about the turnout. Matter of fact, you couldn't believe that people would be out there on a cold, drizzly, raining day such as this to see Dr. King's father. But they were there. And we moved, by the way, I need to make note about the Houston Police Department that was leading our parade. They were in Pintos. You couldn't believe this because you have to see it to believe it. But the Houston Police Department was leading us in Pintos. Right behind them was our honor guard, and right not far down the line was the camper that was carrying Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. Along with Dr. Martin Luther King Sr., he had with him Derek King, his nephew. I'll take that back. Derek King, the grandson of Dr. Martin Luther King and son of A.B. King, was with Dr. King's father to assist him because he was having some age problems at that time. But he was here and he was with us, and this all was a result of our collaboration with the Daniel brothers out at Jerusalem Baptist Church. Civil rights movement was sort of not so much as you say stalled, it had almost stopped after Dr. King's death. Seemed like things had actually come to a standstill. And I think the greatest efforts were being made at that time was to try and get a national holiday for Dr. King. And we decided we would do on this level what we could to help. And then, of course, when we were contacted by the Daniel brothers, and then we had the opportunity to meet with Dr. King's father, that really enhanced the possibilities of us kicking off a national sort of fervor to get a national holiday for Dr. King. Matter of fact, we teamed up additionally, which you won't see in this drama, with a couple of radio stations and sent over 69,000 signatures to Washington asking that Dr. King have a national holiday. We truly feel that we were the spark that helped to set this whole thing right and get it moving, because it was sort of stalled at this time. I think Representative Kanye was pushing this heavily in Washington, but he needed a lot of help. Stevie Wonder came into the picture, and then other people start coming aboard, and finally, of course, as you know, in 1983, the national holiday was declared for 1986. So we were in 1978, which we were ahead of the curve to get this thing rolling for Dr. King.
It is in this spot, in this section of Africa, that we find the Gold Coast, there in West Africa. You also know that for years and for centuries, Africa has been one of the most exploited continents in the history of the world. It's been the dark continent. It's been the continent that has suffered all of the pain and the affliction that could be mustered up by other nations. And it is that continent which has experienced slavery, which has experienced all of the lowest standards that we can think about, have been brought into being by the exploitation inflicted upon it by other nations. This country, the Gold Coast, was a part of this extensive continent known as Africa. It's a little country there in West Africa, about 91,000 miles in area, with a population of about 5 million people, a little more than 4.5 million. It stands there with its capital city, Accra. For years, the Gold Coast was exploited and dominated and trampled over. The first European settlers came in there about 1444, the Portuguese, and they started legitimate trade with the people in the Gold Coast. They started dealing with them with their gold, and in turn, they gave them guns and ammunition and gunpowder and that type of thing. But pretty soon America was discovered a few years later in the 1400s. Then the British West Indies. And all of these growing discoveries brought about the slave trade. You remember it started in America in 1619. There was a big scramble for power in Africa. With the growth of the slave trade, that came into Africa, into the Gold Coast in particular, not only the Portuguese, but also the Swedes and the Danes and the Dutch and the British. And all of these nations competed with each other to win the power of the Gold Coast so that they could exploit these people for commercial reasons and sell them into slavery. Finally, in 1850, Britain won out, and she gained possession of the total territorial expansion of the Gold Coast from 1850 to 1957, March 6th. The Gold Coast was a colony of the British Empire. And as a colony, she suffered all of the injustices, all of the exploitation, all of the humiliation that comes as a result of colonialism. But like all slavery, like all domination, like all exploitation, it came to the point that the people got tired of it. That seems to be the long story of history. There seems to be a throbbing desire. There seems to be an internal desire for freedom within the soul of every man. And it's there. It might not break forth in the beginning, but eventually it breaks out. For men realize that freedom is something basic. And to rob a man of his freedom is to take from him the essential basis of his manhood. Take from him his freedom is to rob him of something of God's image. Paraphrase the words of Shakespeare's Othello, who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis something nothing, 'twas mine, 'tis his, has been the slave of thousands. But he who filches from me my freedom robs me of that which not enriches him, but makes me poor indeed. That is something in the soul that cries out for freedom. That is something deep down within the very soul of man that reaches out for Canaan. Men cannot be satisfied with Egypt. They try to adjust to it for a while. Many men have vested interest in Egypt. They are slow to leave. Egypt makes it profitable to them. Some people profit by Egypt. The vast majority of the masses of people never profit by Egypt, and they are never content with it. And eventually they rise up and begin to cry out for Canaan's land. And so these people got tired. It had a long history. As far back as 1844, the chiefs themselves of the Gold Coast rose up and came together and revolted against the British Empire and the other powers that were in existence at that time dominating the Gold Coast. They revolted, saying that they wanted to govern themselves. But these powers clamped down on them, and the British said that we will not let you go. About 1909, a young man was born on the 12th of September. History didn't know at that time what that young man had in his mind. His mother and father, illiterate, not a part of the powerful tribal life of Africa, not chiefs at all, but humble people. And that boy grew up, he went to school at Achimota for a while in Africa. And then he finished there with honors and decided to work his way to America. And he landed to America one day with about $50 in his pocket in terms of pounds, getting ready to get an education. And he went down to Pennsylvania to Lincoln University. He started studying there, and he started reading the great insights of the philosophers. He started reading the great insights of the ages, and he finished that and took his theological degree there and preached a while around Philadelphia and other areas as he was in the country. And went over to the University of Pennsylvania and took up a master's there in philosophy and sociology. And all the years that he stood in America, he was poor. He had to work hard. He says in his autobiography how he worked as a bellhop in hotels, as a dishwasher. And during the summer, how he worked as a waiter trying to struggle through school. Got a ship and went to London and stopped for a while by London School of Economy and picked up another degree there. And then while in London he started thinking about Pan-Africanism. the problem of how to free his people from colonialism. For as he said, he always realized that colonialism was made for domination and for exploitation. It was.
My name is Kerry Beeson. I'll tell you a little bit about my life. I finished high school, went to college 2 years, took a trade in printing. And when I finished, I came to Houston to get a job in printing. And I couldn't find no job in printing because I went to the Chronicle, I went to the Post, and couldn't hire nobody because I had to have an apprenticeship. One day I was filming stories on the street with a camera. I went and bought me a big camera and started filming. And so I went to channels 11, 2, and 13, freelance. So one day I decided I wanted to shoot. I heard they were going to take South Park, make make a parade, going to change the name, Martin Luther King. So I decided I'd do it. It was raining bad that day. It was raining, so I had a van. So I put the camera up in my van, in the back of my van, and shot the parade coming down Martin Luther King. I thought I wasn't gonna make it because the weather was cold. It was cold that day, and didn't realize how important this film was. I was just doing something to keep myself busy. The crowd was excited that day. Everybody was welcome. Daddy King was. After I filmed it, I called Mr. Duncantell and told him I had it, and he said, "Well, I'm gonna come by there and look at it." So he came by the house and looked at it. He said, "Yeah, we want it."
We made a sincere promise and commitment to Dr. King's father that we would keep his legacy. This wouldn't be just a one-year event and then never again would you see the event. We promised that this would become an annual event. We, especially here in Houston, I'd say as a result of the way Dr. King was treated here, we wanted to highlight that the citizens of Houston did not feel that way about Dr. King. We loved the man. We appreciated him giving his life for what he stood for. And as a result of that, we made a lifetime commitment to carry on the Dr. King's legacy. So it's deeply ingrained with me, and I know as long as I'm on this planet, there will be a Dr. Martin Luther King program honoring this great man. This is our 35th annual anniversary coming up very shortly, and we plan to have 30 more years and 30 more years. However, 35 years in January 21st of 2013. So we will have been in business carrying out this program for quite some time. But now we've grown over the years, and we have taken on, not only do we have a Martin Luther King holiday celebration, we have a Martin Luther King weekend celebration. And what we do, we start out on Friday night having what we call the Martin Luther King Gala. That's the event where we have introduced a lot of our members and people that have, and supporters that have been steadfastly with us over the years. We thank them at this particular occasion, and we have a sit-down dinner, and hope everybody enjoy themselves. We ask people to keep an eye open for this because the information will be forthcoming very shortly about our upcoming gala. Also, on that Saturday, we have Saturday morning, we have a youth parade that can fluctuate. Usually it was in the Martin Luther King area on Griggs Road, but that is now under construction, so we're probably going to move that into the downtown area for the children's parade. We want children of all caliber, all colors, all persuasions to bring and put your children in this parade. It's free. It doesn't cost anything to be a participant and a part of it. Just contact us, and you will have a contact number to get in touch with us from this program. Additionally, on that same day, we have a concert in McGregor Park that afternoon. And that concert going, and at that time we would be registering people to vote. We would have health fair and health. We're concerned about your health. Just like our First Lady, we want our people and our nation and our community to be a healthy community. And one way to do that, we'll have a health fair on that same day. Now, we move to Sunday. Sunday, we generally work with the church here, St. John Baptist Church in the downtown area, where we feed the hungry. We hope to feed at least 2,500 people, and we need businesses who can assist us in getting these food products so we can give it to the homeless on that particular day. We need your help. Moving into Monday. Monday is our big day. That's the day of the annual parade, which will be our 35th. We are asking people to participate. Put your vehicles, put your cars and your floats and all of the things, bicycles. We don't care. We want everybody to participate. We want this to be a load thing. Primarily, though, we need your bands. So if you are attached to a school, if you are a person that is on a booster club, encourage your band to come and join us on this particular day, historical day for Dr. Martin Luther King. 1980, we had had recent elected mayor, Mayor Jim McCon, who's agreed with us that something should be done in this town, really honoring Dr. King in addition to the street. So he and the full city council unanimously voted to put a statue on Martin Luther King Boulevard at OST, on the Esplanade. That went along wonderful. Matter of fact, the city of Houston, we're going to put up $90,000 for the project, a larger-than-life statue for Dr. King. Then we hit a bump in the road. No. We went into a ditch. It was not a bump in the road. The city said that the RFP for the statue and its artist, its sculptor, would have to be bidded to the general public, not only here in Houston, but to the nation. And however, whoever won the bid would determine the statue. And we, the Black Heritage Society, and the citizens would have no say-so about who this sculptor was or how Dr. King was to look. And matter of fact, what really killed the deal was the fact when we were told that Dr. King may be put up in abstract. And if you've been to our library here in Houston, they have a abstract picture of a mouse outside the statue. I say, look, I cannot go to my people and tell them that Dr. King could possibly end up in abstract. In 1983, we stopped the deal, stopped negotiating with the city of Houston, and Dr. King's father suggested something. He told Derek to come and tell us, say, hey, look, you don't want to forget where the city has given you the spot to put the statue. So why don't you plant a tree there until they can make up their mind on what they want to do? And or you can raise the monies on your own and put the statue there, but you need to mark it. So we had a tree planting ceremony in 1983, and I forget the month, but we planted that tree. Derek King was here, and we had several dignitaries, as you'll see in a picture that we'll show you. There, when the tree was planted, we had the city of Houston full participation on that, because they had us with the ceremonial shovels, and I think I may be the individual holding the shovel, digging the first, turning the first dirt. Metro decided to go down Martin Luther King Boulevard with the train, and that train ran right into that tree. And I mean, that's the proverbial train ran into the realistic oak tree that we had planted there. And of course, Metro wasn't aware of it. And when they became aware, they had to sit down and talk to us, because we had a commitment from the city that was ironclad, obviously, that we had access to that land and they would have to get our permission to go through it. Anyway, we worked out a deal with Metro finally and come up with something better than we originally had planned. And they called this Plan B. And Plan B was to get with the city of Houston, get their okay, and put a plaza, Martin Luther King Jr. Plaza, in McGregor Park, in the southeast end of that park. In there, we moved the tree into the park, which they've already done as of now. Then they'll build a plaza, and then we'll put the statue there. Of course, the old proverbial monster raised his head about who would control the statue and what it looked like, and how would that be done. Well, Metro was going to build a statue, but they would have to put it out for bids. And of course, it could come back being in the abstract or something that did not resemble Dr. King or whatever. We would have no control of what, this statue would look like. So we said, no, no, no. You do the plaza, move the tree, we'll do the statue. And that's where we are at now, and we are trying to bring top standing citizens, people who have interest in the arts in this city together. And the promotion of just good life in the city of Houston to work with us and help us raise approximately $150,000 to do the larger-than-life statue. This statue will be over 8 feet tall. The base will be 4 feet. So it's going to be huge. It will be noticed. Website is www.blackheritagesociety.org. And our phone number is 713-236-1700. So please contact us.